So today, lads, we're going to be talking, unfortunately, about the Sophie Cunningham situation.
A major sports journalist just got completely exposed for spreading malicious lies about Sophie Cunningham. The shocking truth behind these fake allegations has blown up in their face, with devastating consequences for everyone involved. This story gets darker and more twisted than anyone expected when you see the receipts. So we're talking about the Sophie Cunningham situation today, and honestly, I really wish we didn't have to. I'd much rather be covering actual basketball, but here we are again dealing with another manufactured controversy targeting players connected to Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. This whole mess is a perfect example of how certain people seem determined to destroy anyone in Clark's orbit. Facts be damned. How many more lies will the media spread about Fever players before someone finally holds them accountable? Drop your thoughts below.
What the lawsuit was, there is a person who is suing somebody who works for the Phoenix Mercury. And in the lawsuit, as like a part of the lawsuit is that this person they're suing actively tried to basically sabotage the workplace. And as part of the sabotage, apparently this person trying to sabotage the workplace started a rumor that Sophie Cunningham had a relationship with the CEO of the Suns. So the person who started a rumor was being sued and part of it was because he started that rumor. And it was in the lawsuit that it was a rumor. I mentioned this plenty of times. It is in writing that it's a rumor. But people literally cut out the line of what the rumor was, not saying, basically, I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like he went around telling everybody.
Let's break down exactly what happened here, because it's even worse than you probably think. There's a lawsuit involving someone who works for the Phoenix Mercury. That's the starting point. In this lawsuit, a person is being sued for trying to sabotage their workplace. Part of the sabotage included spreading rumors about various people, including Sophie Cunningham. The lawsuit specifically states that this disgruntled employee started a rumor, and I repeat, a rumor that Cunningham had a relationship with the CEO of the Phoenix Suns. Now here's where it gets truly disgusting. Someone took that lawsuit, found the line mentioning the rumor about Cunningham, and completely stripped away all the context. They cut out the part explaining it was a rumor. They cut out the part showing it was mentioned as an example of workplace sabotage. They cut out everything that made it clear this was false information being spread by someone who was being sued for lying. What did they leave? Just the accusation itself, presented as if it were fact, as if it were part of some legitimate legal finding rather than an example of malicious gossip that someone was being sued for spreading. This is journalistic malpractice at its most basic level. Taking a court document that explicitly labels something as a false rumor and presenting it as factual information, that's not just irresponsible, it's intentionally deceptive, and the journalist who did this knows exactly what they were doing, Sophie. Cunningham had to respond publicly, which she shouldn't have had to do. Her statement was heartbreaking. I'm deeply saddened by recent allegations made against me by Gene Traylor, someone I don't know and I've never met. Let me be clear, these statements are untrue and extremely hurtful. I'm here to compete, play basketball at the highest level, and win for my team and fans while inspiring other women that they can do anything they'd ever dream of becoming. She continued, I hold myself to the highest integrity, and my values are what guide me on and off the court. In media reporting this, I've always spoken the truth and been transparent to any press inquiry. In this instance, it feels irresponsible that I was never asked for comment before the accusation, and several clickbait stories went to print. I will not let this untrue gossip take my focus away from what is important to me, which is basketball, my supportive team, and my fans. The fact that she had to issue this statement at all is disgusting. A professional athlete shouldn't have to defend herself against deliberately misrepresented legal documents, but that's exactly what happened here. And let's be crystal clear about something. This is selective harassment. The WNBA loves to talk about no place for hate in their league, but apparently there needs to be an asterisk on that statement. No place for hate, unless it's directed at Fever players, unless it's targeting anyone connected to Caitlin Clark. Then suddenly, the rules don't apply. Look at the pattern here. We've seen lies spread about Clark herself. We've seen baseless investigations launched against Fever fans based on Twitter rumors. We've seen manufactured controversies surrounding every aspect of the Indiana Fever organization. And now we're seeing blatant lies spread about Cunningham, a player whose only crime was being teammates with Clark. This is systematic bullying, plain and simple. These aren't sports fans engaging in normal rivalry or trash talk. These are bullies. who have discovered they can destroy people's reputations with deliberately misleading information. And they're getting away with it because certain media members are either complicit or too cowardly to call it out. The same people pushing this lie about Cunningham are the exact same accounts that spread the false narrative about Angel Reese being subjected to racist chanting at the Fever game. Remember that? The WNBA launched a full investigation based on unverified Twitter claims, despite having no audio or video evidence of what was allegedly said. Even the Chicago Sky's coach, who previously worked for Indiana, said he heard nothing inappropriate from the crowd. But facts don't matter to these people. The investigation is still ongoing with no timeline for completion because they can't find evidence of something that didn't happen. Meanwhile, the damage is done. Fever fans are treated with suspicion, and the narrative becomes fact through repetition rather than evidence. Now they're using the same playbook against Cunningham. Take a legal document, strip away the context that proves something is false, and present the false information as legitimate. Spread it far and wide until people start believing it. Mission accomplished. Another player connected to Clark has her reputation damaged. What makes this particularly infuriating is that these aren't random Twitter trolls doing this. These are accounts with verified check marks, people with media credentials, journalists with platforms and responsibilities. They know better. They're choosing to spread false information because it serves their agenda. And what is that agenda? It's becoming increasingly clear that certain figures in the WNBA ecosystem are uncomfortable with Caitlin Clark's popularity and the attention she's brought to the league. Rather than embrace the unprecedented growth she's generated, they seem determined to tear down anyone associated with her success. Think about it logically. Sophie Cunningham plays for the Phoenix Mercury, not the Indiana Fever. She's not even Clark's teammate, but she's in Clark's general orbit. They're friends, they interact on social media, they support each other publicly, and that's enough to make her a target for these coordinated attacks. The message is clear. Associate with Caitlin Clark at your own risk. Support her publicly, and you might find yourself the subject of deliberately misleading journalism that destroys your reputation for clicks and engagement. This is what bullying looks like in 2024. It's not kids on a playground, it's adults, with media platforms using their reach to spread false information about athletes whose only crime is being successful or supporting someone successful. Let's talk about the broader implications here. When journalists can take court documents that explicitly label something as a false rumor and present it as fact, what does that say about media integrity? When the same people demanding investigations into unverified Twitter claims are themselves spreading unverified Twitter claims, what does that say about their credibility? The answer is that we're dealing with bad faith actors who don't care about truth, fairness, or basic journalistic standards. They care about narratives, agendas, and tearing down people they've decided don't deserve success. Sophie Cunningham mentioned in her statement that she was never asked for comment before these stories went to print. That's journalism 101. You reach out to people before you publish stories about them. The fact that didn't happen here tells you everything about the motivations behind this attack. This wasn't journalism. This was character assassination disguised as reporting. And the people doing it know exactly what they're doing. What's particularly sick is how they're targeting someone's personal life and relationships. Even if the rumors were true, which they explicitly aren't according to the legal documents, what business is it of ours? Cunningham is a professional athlete. Judge her on her basketball performance, not on gossipy speculation about her private life. But that's the point, isn't it? They can't attack her basketball because she's a solid player who helps her team win games. So they go after her personally, instead using deliberately misleading legal documents to give their gossip a veneer of legitimacy. The timing is also suspicious. This attack on Cunningham comes right as the WNBA is dealing with backlash over their handling of the Fever fan investigation. Rather than address their own mistakes, they're allowing or encouraging attacks on anyone connected to the situation. It's a classic deflection strategy. Can't defend your investigation that found no evidence? Attack someone else to change the subject. Can't explain why you launched an investigation based on Twitter rumors? Spread more Twitter rumors to muddy the waters, and it's working, at least partially. Instead of talking about the WNBA's incompetent handling of their baseless investigation, we're now talking about false allegations against Sophie Cunningham. Mission accomplished for the people who want to distract from their own failures. But here's what they didn't count on. People are starting to see the pattern. Every time there's scrutiny of the WNBA's anti-Clark agenda, suddenly there's a new controversy involving someone in her circle. Every time their previous lies get exposed, they double down with new lies. It's becoming impossible to ignore what's really happening here. This isn't about protecting players from racism or abuse. This is about destroying anyone who threatens the preferred narrative about women's basketball. Caitlin Clark brought unprecedented attention to the WNBA. Instead of embracing that growth, certain figures within the league ecosystem seem determined to tear down her and anyone associated with her. They'd rather return to the days of half-empty arenas and no mainstream attention than accept that Clark has fundamentally changed women's basketball for the better. Think about how backwards that is. The WNBA struggled for decades to gain mainstream relevance. Clark brought them more attention in one season than they'd had in the previous decade combined. And their response is to find ways to minimize her impact and attack her support system? It's organizational self-sabotage at the highest level, and players like Sophie Cunningham are caught in the crossfire, having their reputations attacked by people who are supposed to be covering the sport professionally. The saddest part is that Cunningham had to waste her time and emotional energy responding to this garbage instead of focusing on basketball. She's trying to compete at the highest level, trying to help her team win games, trying to inspire young women who look up to her, and instead she has to defend herself against lies spread by people who should know better. This is what happens when bullies are allowed to operate without consequences. They get bolder, they target more people, they cause more damage, and eventually they destroy the very thing they claim to be protecting. The WNBA talks about creating a safe space for women's basketball, but what kind of safe space allows journalists to spread false allegations about players based on deliberately misrepresented legal documents? What kind of safe space launches investigations based on unverified social media claims while ignoring documented harassment of other players? The reality is that there is no safety for players who don't fit the preferred narrative. Support Caitlin Clark? You're a target. Achieve success that doesn't align with the predetermined storylines? You're a target. Even just exist in the same general orbit as someone they've decided to hate? You're a target. Sophie Cunningham learned that lesson the hard way, and unfortunately, she probably won't be the last. What's most frustrating is that this could all be stopped tomorrow if the WNBA leadership had any backbone. They could call out the journalists spreading false information. They could demand better standards from their media partners. They could protect their players from character assassination, but they won't, because the people doing the attacking are the same people who help shape the league's narrative. The WNBA has essentially outsourced their public relations to Twitter accounts and bloggers who have their own agendas, and those agendas don't include fair treatment for anyone connected to Caitlin Clark. So we'll keep seeing these attacks, we'll keep seeing manufactured controversies, we'll keep seeing players have to defend themselves against lies while the people spreading those lies face no consequences. Unless something changes, this is the new normal for women's basketball. Not a celebration of athletic achievement, but a toxic environment where success is punished and association with the wrong people makes you a target for destruction. Sophie Cunningham deserves better. Caitlin Clark deserves better. All WNBA players deserve better than this circus of lies and manufactured drama. But as long as the bullies are allowed to operate without consequences, as long as journalists can spread false information without accountability, and as long as the WNBA refuses to protect its own players from character assassination, this is what we're going to get. The only way Caitlin Clark could stop this, as someone pointed out, is by retiring from the WNBA, moving to Antarctica, and never turning on her phone again. And even then, they'd probably find a way to blame her for climate change or something. That's not a solution. That's surrender to the bullies. And it's exactly what they want. They want Clark gone. They want her influence minimized. They want women's basketball to return to the controllable, predictable, irrelevant state it was in before she arrived. But here's the thing, the damage is already done. Clark has already transformed women's basketball. The attention she brought isn't going away just because some bitter people can't handle change. The new fans she attracted aren't going to suddenly lose interest because of manufactured controversies. The bullies might succeed in making individual players miserable. They might succeed in creating a toxic environment around the sport. But they can't undo the fundamental shift that Clark has created in how people view women's basketball, and eventually their tactics are going to backfire. People are getting tired of the lies, the manufactured drama, the constant attacks on players who don't deserve it. The truth has a way of coming out, and when it does, the people spreading false information are going to be exposed for what they really are. Until then, players like Sophie Cunningham are going to have to endure attacks on their character based on deliberately misleading information. They're going to have to waste time and energy defending themselves against lies instead of focusing on their careers. It's disgusting, it's unfair, and it needs to stop, but it probably won't stop until there are real consequences for the people doing it. And unfortunately, those consequences seem unlikely to come from the WNBA itself. So we're left with this toxic cycle. Lies get spread, players get hurt, the truth eventually comes out, but by then the damage is done and the liars have moved on to their next target. Sophie Cunningham is just the latest victim, she won't be the last. And that's the real tragedy in all of this. The lies about Sophie Cunningham have been completely exposed, but will anyone face consequences for spreading false information? This pattern of attacks on fever-connected players is getting out of control. Hit that like button, subscribe now, and comment "Protect our players" if you want accountability for media lies.